Hello, welcome to Shad Life. I did the unboxing of this video. It's a live feed of the Siskiu T8, and it was over an hour long. So this is gonna be the short version, and then I'm gonna talk about bike setup. So basically, this bike is extremely impressive for how much it costs. So I paid $19.99. It's retail price. So we got to think in retail price terms here. It was $2,400. So I think it was $23.99. So it was like $400 off. And if you look at it, it's really well spec'd. It's actually got an SLX crank, SLX cassette, which I'm surprised because that's usually one of those places where they'll cut costs and do like a Sun cassette or something like that, but that's a true Shimano SLX cassette, SLX derailleur, so it's got a true SLX drivetrain. A lot of times you'll see companies say that they have a SLX drivetrain, but they'll basically only have the derailleur, maybe the chain, and then they'll do like a Sun cassette, and then they'll do some other crank, like a Dior crank or some other brand. But this is true all SLX, even an aluminum chainring. Usually you'll see steel on the bikes in this price range, so pretty shocking. The other amazing thing about this is Fox suspension, so a float, rear shock, and rhythm front. So this is a trail bike, so you don't need massive stanchions or anything. 34 is plenty. Actually comes with true Hans Dampf tires. Serious good name brand components. Where I feel like they save some money is in the rims. I think are their own name brand, their entity, but it actually has Shimano hubs, sealed bearing nonetheless. Again, in this price range, they'll skimp by giving you free ball bearing hubs and stuff. But where they save money is probably the stem. The handlebars are probably their own name brand. It's nothing super fancy, but it's nice. It looks like 35 millimeter clamp, and it's a 35 millimeter reach stem, which is kind of the going standards, right? 140 front travel, 130 rear. The pedals are, they are aluminum with metal pins. I'm impressed by that because usually you get plastic pedals in this price point. The dropper, it's a Trans-X. Trans-X, one of those droppers that's on a lot of bikes that just does what it needs to do. It's not fancy or anything, but it is a nice length. It's really impressive. Like, this bike blows my mind so far. I haven't ridden it yet, so we'll see what I think about it when I'm on the trail. And then it's got these Tektro hydraulic brakes. I hate the levers, so this is where I'm starting to nitpick. I don't like how big these levers are. They don't seem very easy to adjust and get set up the way I want them. I tried to bring them closer to the grips, but there's so much movement before they grab, and so I'm debating on whether I should probably try bleeding them to see if I can get them to grab a little sooner. I was kind of hoping wouldn't have to do something like that. Even some of the cable routing, like how tight this one is and does this tight little curve, it's almost like the cable is too long and they could have cut it much shorter, stuff like that. But overall, like, for the price, blows my mind, believe it or not. And the seat, kind of gross, another entity product. So the shiny surface, I can tell, is going to suck because you stick to it. The padding seems okay, but until I ride it, I won't know. But all right, that's just the overview of the bike and how impressive it is just out of the box. We weighed it last night. It was just over 34 pounds, so a little on the heavy side for a trail bike, but again, it's aluminum. It still has the tubes in. I'm going to take those out before I go ride it and set it up tubeless. There's definitely some places I could see where you could shave off a couple pounds if you really wanted to. But yeah, let's show the setup. So before I go ride this bike, I want to make sure I have the right pressure in my suspension. So this little gasket here is what you use to judge how much sag you have. So what I do is I will push that all the way up, and then I will get on the bike and just sit on it. I'll literally sit on the seat and lift my feet off for a second, let the suspension compress, and then I'll step off the bike. You don't want to bounce up and down or do anything like that. So definitely do that, and then you'll see this ring move into whatever position. So for me, it was just almost halfway, not quite, so that's too soft. So I want to put air pressure in it and get it so it's more like 25-30%. It really varies depending on the rear shock, but that's about where I generally will start, and then I'll adjust from there. So you need a specific shock pump like this, not a regular bicycle pump. This is a super high pressure pump, and just go a few psi at a time. You don't want to go overboard, and then try it out. So then up here you have your air. So if you take this cap off, this is the fork now, you'll see a valve under there, and so you can add air to the fork. Believe it or not, this came perfect for me, so I didn't have to add air to it. But you basically want to do the same thing. Get on the bike, put your weight on the fork, and see where that seal goes. And so this is a little on the stiff side, which is actually how I like my forks. I generally like them to be about 25%. If you want a little smoother ride, you can go 30-33%, whatever, like that. I'm gonna run it a little stiff or start it that way. I can always adjust later. And then what I do is I do the rebound on the fork, and I set it all the way to the negative, and then I go about 5 or 6 clicks towards the positive. I want rebound, but I don't want it to be too fast. So that's basically what I do there. And then this is all the way open. I'll start that way, but you can actually go all the way to lockout if you want for climbing and stuff. So that's pretty nice. So super simple setups on the fork, nothing too fancy. You don't have the high speed, low speed compression and all that, which is fine. I mean, it's nice to have that stuff, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's kind of pointless. And then here, I did the same thing with the rebound, as I went all the way to the slow position, but then on the rear shock, I only go about 3 clicks from slow, and that's because I do a lot of jumping and I don't want to get bucked. If your rebound's too fast on the rear, it'll rebound sometimes when you go off jumps, and it'll buck you and make you kind of nosedive and stuff. So I'll start it slow and then adjust from there again. These are things I can actually just hand adjust on the trail. Same with that stuff. So it's kind of nice once you get your air set up, you just tweak this stuff as you're riding. This is open, that's medium, and this actually has what supposedly lockout. Once I'm riding the bike, I'll talk about how those things feel and work. So that's the setup there. And then the other thing I do, and I had to switch the shifter levers. They were on the outside. I moved them to the inside there. Dropper lever, I did the same thing. It was outside, I moved it to the inside. Well, actually the dropper lever wasn't installed at all, but when I did install it, I put it on the inside, and then realized, oh, I need to put it, or I put it on the outside. I realized I need to put it on the inside. You might actually think of this as the inside and then as the outside, since this is the grip, whatever. But the reason I had to do that is because these levers are so big. Look at how far I had to move them in just to get it so I have 1 finger brake from here. Yeah, I don't like these levers. I already know that. The brakes are probably going to be the weak point on this bike. I will see how they work. If they work good, great. But like, I have to figure out how I'm going to set these up so they're not crushing my finger, but I can still reach them, all that stuff. So there you have it. That's the initial setup. Of course, seat height is one of them. You want to make sure that you get full leg extension, almost full leg extension, when your dropper's in the high position, things like that. But this bike's all set up. I just have to pull the tubes out, put tubeless valves in. Supposedly these are already taped according to the website, so they should be really easy. I just pull the tube out, put a tubeless valve in, put some goop in there, and then fill it up and it's ready to go. So there we go. That was the quick and dirty version of this bike and a little bit of setup info for you. It was really easy to assemble out of the box. I so far haven't had to mess with the shifting. It shifted perfect out of the box, which surprises me, but it did, and so I haven't had to mess with that. So I got to monkey with the brakes a little bit before I go up to Cuyuna. I'll be riding it this weekend, then I'll start doing riding reviews on this bike. But pretty impressed so far. This Fox suspension is kind of like their entry level, but the entry level of Fox suspension is like really good suspension. So that's what's kind of nice about it. It's like, so this, I know this is gonna be a good shock. I know that's gonna be a good shock. And the setups are pretty basic, especially the fork. And I think that's great for people who haven't been riding for a long time and don't know how to set up slow speed compression, high speed compression, things like that. Like my DVO Sapphire fork over there has all these settings. It's got this off the top setting, all this crazy stuff, right? This super simple. Once you get it set up, you're good to go. So there you have it. Yeah, I'm excited to ride this bike and see what I think about it on the trail. We can talk specs and all that stuff all day long, but you know, how does the suspension feel? There go the dogs, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we'll talk about that once I'm on the trail. I appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace. Now to go figure out what the dogs are barking at.